Jorge Zamanillo. I'm the museum director at HistoryMiami Museum, and I'm 47 years old. For the next few months, we're going to be reevaluating what we're doing as an institution. We've had an incredible growth period over the last 3 or 4 years. Our public programming spaces have more than doubled, 130% more public programming space. Our attendance has increased by 40%. So we want to step back now and see what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and how we improve that. Well, we're known for telling Miami stories. We tell stories about how people connect with community. We share those stories with the entire community, and we want to make sure that we're including all those stories. All the people are being represented, have cultural equity, that every community in Miami, as diverse as we are, is being represented at the museum. So that could be going back thousands of years and telling our prehistory to a recent event, such as last week with the death of Fidel Castro. We were out in the streets documenting the celebrations on 8th Street across from Versailles. We collected materials in the street, some of the signs, some of the flags, because that's a moment in history we need to collect, and it just happened 2 weeks ago. I believe the museum has to look into what our future growth is, the new populations coming into Miami, the new people. We're an ever-changing city. From year to year, it's a different makeup of who is living in Miami, what nationalities, what ethnicities. I think we need to step back and see and evaluate, like, how are we going to be able to capture those stories in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? And it's quite a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, because it's never boring, it's never dull. There's always a new group, there's always something new happening in Miami, and it's our goal to try to capture that story. We always have enough work. I just have more work now, right? But it's continuing what we've been doing. We're on a great track. With Stuart in the past 3 years, we worked very tightly and collaboratively to make sure we're covering our programs and exhibits and education and marketing goals. We're all unified. So it's continuing on the same track, really. It's just a little more responsibility and a unified message. There's one person with my goals and my vision in place, and getting that across to the staff, to our audience, which is the public, the members, the local government, and make sure we're on the same track. I've been here 16 years now. I did archaeology for about 10 years before that, before coming over to the museum as a curator. I worked in collections and exhibits, and I think what's kept it fresh is that I've moved on to other positions. I worked over expansion projects, then as deputy director, and then finally as museum director. And it's always been a new perspective, always keeping it fresh. Part of my personal philosophy is always to be curious, never stop learning, never stop growing. So I think all those opportunities and positions have helped me fulfill that philosophy. There's always something new happening. Always find a new project that reinvigorates me to make sure I'm still interested in what I'm doing, and also making sure the staff has the same kind of opportunity. For a few years now, we've been working with the county and with the Cultural Affairs Office to use some of the general obligation bond, GOB money, that was allocated to us. We came up with different scenarios on how we connect these buildings, the 2 buildings that we operate in, how we fix the plaza, how we redesign, how we remodel our surroundings. And part of the challenge there is, of course, financing. How do we do that? We want to move forward, and so we have plans in place to move forward with a plan that enhances our exterior and really brings in, opens up our doors to the street level. It enhances the plaza, opportunities for engagement and rentals and events at night. An area between the 2 buildings, maybe a beer garden or a food garden for special occasions, and painting, wayfinding, different ways that we can make ourselves more visible. Because we've made it a point that we want to stay in the core of downtown Miami. There's so much development planned for this area. The Bright Line and the new train, the transportation hub coming just to the north of us next to Government Center. Government Center, of course, with thousands of employees every day walking by our front door. New redevelopment of Flagler Street happening right now. When all this is completed, we're going to be at the center of activity, and we want to stay here and make sure we're part of that. We've had a series of exhibits that have touched people in different ways. Sometimes it's a greater attendance, sometimes they're more profound and more emotional and connect with people at different levels. In the past few years, we've done some popular ones, of course, with Bob Marley and Frank Sinatra and the Beatles, which are music-oriented and people love music. But some of the best attended and the most deep or emotional ones that we've done recently include Operation Pedro Pan that we completed last year. And that exhibition told a story of over 14,000 kids that arrived in Miami from Cuba unaccompanied, alone, from 1960 to 62. And we recorded and interviewed over 15 Pedro Pans, they were called, to tell their story, their account from life in Cuba, that transition, leaving in the airport, arriving in the city back in the 60s, a smaller town, and adapting to living in the United States without parents, some of them for years before they were reunited with their relatives. So that was a very powerful and emotional story we got to capture. And those are the kinds of exhibits that we do want to produce. The one we're really excited about, which we just received a Knight Foundation challenge grant for $120,000, is a Hurricane Andrew 25th anniversary exhibition that we opened June 1st of 2017. It's 25 years already. It's gone by so fast, and everybody has a story to tell about where they were when Andrew hit South Florida. And also it's a place of remembrance and commemoration of how the community rebuilt in just a few months, in just a few years, how they bounced back, and how much stronger they are now. So many of the pieces you see in an exhibit are part of our collection. At one time, we only show about 4% of our total collection. We had thousands of artifacts, millions of photographs in our archives, and we could only show a small percentage of those. When we do some of the traveling shows or some of the temporary shows, let's say, we go out into the community and we collect. We meet with people that have collections, let's say on Pedro Pan. They've done their own work collecting over the years, or they know people that might have an artifact that tells that story. And we go out into the community and we form those relationships and we record. Sometimes we record an oral interview, sometimes we do a video interview with them, and many times we go out and collect their artifacts, their pieces. Sometimes we purchase material to be exhibited or to add to our collection. So it's a combination. I think some of the most exciting history in the past 30, 40 years, it's really starting with the 70s and the incredible growth of the city through immigration. We had a large crime waves and we call it the cocaine cowboys era. And that's really what transformed the new city the way I look at it. The South Beach becomes South Beach. It's just a beach before that with retirees. Suddenly you have the new Art Deco buildings being remodeled. And that's really you start seeing the growth of what we call a modern Miami. I see that's the era that I grew up in, the 70s and 80s in Miami. So I remember it clearly, and I remember that being a historic moment in my life, and I could see the changes happening in the city. And then, again, we're a city that's a little bit over 100 years old, and we see that every 20 or 30 years. We see that incredible growth spurt. It happened again in the 90s, and then, of course, in 2008, before the market crashed, there was a large condo boom and real estate boom, and now that went down and starting again. You know, we see a large growth again. What's consistent throughout all those little growth spurts is the wave of people coming in from different parts. We're a community that's over 70, probably over 65, 70% from somewhere else, right? So, and that goes back years. It's not only recent immigration waves or people from other countries, but it goes back 10,000 years. Even our native people, our prehistoric, their Native Americans came from somewhere else. They migrated down from somewhere else to live in South Florida. And then later on, the Seminole Indians came from somewhere else in the 1700s to populate this region also. Later on, the early pioneers, you have the Tuttles and the Flaglers coming down, bringing the railroad. Those are groups that, for some reason or other, wanted to move to South Florida and Miami and live here. So that's a continuing pattern and wave that we get. So it's just history repeating itself. So it's really exciting to document all those waves and know that's going to happen again. Yeah. And it's going to completely reinvent itself.